On the occasion of the Toronto Public Library's Keep Toronto Reading 2011 festival, Jen Knock at the Keeping It Real Book Club invited me to talk about a book that has changed my life. It didn't take me long to settle on which book I wanted to talk about, because when I think about the books that have affected me profoundly, both as a reader and a critic, the one that stands out in my mind is Flannery O'Connor's first novel, Wise Blood. This is the story of a guy named Hazel Moats, who gets discharged from the army after World War II and returns to his hometown of East Rod to find that it's gone. It's vanished. Like Gertrude Stein says, there's no there there. So Hayes picks up and heads for an unfamiliar city called Tulkenham, where he encounters a blind preacher named Asa Hawkes and his sexually ravenous daughter, Sabbath Lily. As a result of Hayes's encounter with Asa and Sabbath, he decides to become a preacher himself, but Hayes has had a very conflicted relationship with religion in his life, so he inaugurates his own church called the Church Without Christ, and begins preaching that church where the blind don't see, and the lame don't walk, and what's dead stays that way. Basically, the entire book is about Hayes' attempt to outrun Jesus, and his chronic inability to do so. It's a very funny book. It's a very scary book, and I can quite honestly say it's unlike anything I've ever read in the English language. It's also a book that will appeal to a lapsed Catholic, like me. O'Connor was herself a very devout Catholic, but her favorite Bible text was the text in which Jesus says, "I come not to bring peace, but a sword." So as you can imagine, her novel is very abrasive, it's very corrosive, and I don't think it's possible to come away from the novel unmoved. Whether you love it or hate it, it will have an effect on you. Critics suggest that O'Connor's second novel, The Violent Bear It Away, is a better book. And on the level of pure technique, they're right. It's a better structured book, and it displays an author who is in better control of her materials. But I prefer Wise Blood in many ways because of its problems, not in spite of them. It's one of the books that opened my eyes to what fiction could do in terms of its effect on a reader. It showed me for the first time the profound effect that a book could have on a reader. And I really envy people who haven't encountered this book before, because they have the opportunity to read it for the first time, which is something I'll never get back. And I very much regret that, because although it's a book that I can come to again and again and reread with pleasure, there really isn't anything to compare to the experience of reading it for the first time. It's a book that affected me profoundly. It certainly changed my life, and my hope is that there are one or two people out there who will watch this and be moved to pick it up, and maybe it'll change your life too.